So here we are, Wednesday the 1st of March, 7:15 in the morning. I start work at 8, so I've got time to start on this. And what we're going to do is basically unbox it, get it in its tray, and see what we can do in sort of half an hour before I have to put it to one side. I love ICM boxes. It's always the first challenge is actually getting in the box. Bloody thing. Oh look, we're in. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and welcome to part one of my build of this German light fire truck. It's an ICM kit number 35527 in 1:35 scale, and it looks gorgeous, doesn't it? And this is being built as part of the commercial vehicle group build hosted by Rob at Rims Models and myself. So we need to get the build on the go. 1st of March is upon us and we have 2 months to build this. Exactly how I'm going to build it, I don't know yet. I know I'm going to be doing it red. I haven't fully decided on weathering, and I guess it's largely going to be dependent on how much time I have. So we could be in showroom condition at the end of this, or we could be barn find. I'm somewhere in between. I just don't know. Right, so let's get our instructions out of the way. Okay, so the box has been unpacked because we did a first impressions on this a little while ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack it all, put it in a tray, and then we can start having a look at what we want to tackle first, which I think, according to this, is our engine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick through the instructions and have a look for some sub-assemblies. So we've got the wheel here is a sub-assembly, the pipe is a sub-assembly, seats. So going to build up a load of sub-assemblies so that and then we go back to the start of the instructions, and that just makes things nice and easy. So lots and lots of cleanup to start with. Yeah, right. And we're going to start with my first step. Now, this won't suit everybody. Some people like to keep their instructions after they've finished the build. Some people like to keep the box. I haven't got space for that. I love building models. It's as simple as that. So when I'm done with it, whatever's left of this goes in the recycling, even if it's wing nut wings. And you can see I've butchered this one for the same reason that I'm about to butcher this. The first thing I do is I cut out the paint call out panel, and then I decide what paints I'm using and I mark them down. And the reason I do that is that I can keep this to hand. I don't have to be flicking back through the what's E again? Oh yeah, it's wood. You know, I can have it to hand whatever I'm doing, and it just makes things a little bit more convenient and a bit quicker. So first thing I'm going to do, like I say, is chop that out. I'm not losing anything. It's just the sprue map on the other side, and I don't tend to use the sprue map, I've got to say. It's not something I find that I cross-reference very often. Occasionally you might use it to try and identify a part when you can't find it yourself on the sprue, but It's not very often, so its main function is just checking that you've got the right number of sprues when you first open the box, I guess. So I'm not worried that I'm chopping it up. So this particular kit from ICM is calling out just Model Master. More recent kits have started calling out Revell, and I think that's because there's some form of partnership going on with Revell. What that is quite, I don't know, but Revell have been releasing some of their kits under their own name, so there's definitely something going on. So I'm going to cut this label in half, and we can use that to cover up the Ukrainian, which I can't read anyway, so we're not losing anything. And that leaves me with the letter and what's being called out. So I have just documented the paints that I intend to use for the paints that they're calling out, the colours they're calling out throughout the build. It's always worth flicking through the instructions and finding out what these items are that are being painted, because that can help you determine which paint you want to use. So, for example, white. I've got several different whites in Vallejo, in Humbrol, in Tamiya Lacquer, in Life Colour, in White Ensign models, and Admiral. You know, I've got loads and loads of different whites, and I'm not going to use a lacquer paint and get the airbrush out for that, because it's literally those there. Those are the only things that get painted white on the ends there, although it does show a little white connector as well. But that is it. That's all you're doing. So I'm just going to put a dab of Humbrol 34 on them. So yeah, there's some of these Model Master colours you can convert directly. Some of them I'm having to sort of find an alternative for. But one way or another, I've got all of these in stock, so we're good to go. Glue, emery board, sprue cutters. Let's start our sub-assemblies. So first sub-assembly is our engine block. So let's have a look. We need A52. A70. A49. And A54, which is there. So, first sub-assembly is the engine block. It's a sprue bin. Sprue gate is on the little lip here. As you can see, we've got some over. So let me show you how I deal with them. And I get a sharp knife, and we're just going to follow this line, the ridge that we want to restore. Chop down, making sure that we've followed the line Just cut that in so that it's down level with the plastic. And then what we can do is go in underneath with our knife blade and slowly just go underneath it and raise it and lift it off. There we go. You'd never know that sprue gate had been there. And then if we tidy it up with a little bit of emery board, straighten up that edge. You won't even know when you paint that that was ever there, and that's what we're looking for. Small error here on step 5. It's calling for parts G18 and G7, and then I'm guessing that those are the other 2 parts because we've got 2 hoses to make up, which they've not numbered. So, but that's definitely the other side, I think. Or is it just turned around? No, that's step 5, step 6. Then it's referring to step 5 there, you see. And that's different parts. So that we are making up both sides, but what they should say is part 18 and part 17. So, yeah, small error in the instructions, just something to watch out for. Fit of these little hose extensions is really, really nice. So we can clamp these and go straight to gluing, I think, and then we'll clean up afterwards. Where we've got our sprue gates, when we clean them up, those are the bits that we can face down on the model. So, but we can probably clean them up with a razor saw and they won't look so bad. But what we want to do is line things up so we've got no step in the 2 parts at the top, which is the surface that's going to get seen. So we'll use the extra thin for these. Right, put them to one side to dry. So that's our next sub-assembly done. Engine block is done and hoses. And then next thing is we've got a little bit of work to do on some of the wheels. So we make 2 sets of step 9 and step 10. So D14. So D1 is the sprue number, 4 is the part number. So we need both of those off. And then we need the rim for it, which is 3. And then 3, which is this one here, has part 4 on sprue D2. That just glues into the back of there, so we can do that now as well. I'll be able to just glue that in place. Yeah, we can just glue that in place, I think. But I'm wondering if I want to do that now. I'm seeing it because it might be better to paint that beforehand, because as you see through there, that's going to be quite difficult to paint, isn't it? Yeah, so we won't do that. I'll plop that one back in the box. So these rims have little location points, 3 of them. yeah, we can glue those in, and then that can be cleaned up later. Makes a nice deep rim. By doing this, what we're doing is we're going to get to each step and just have either clean up or paint to do, or just paint to do, and it'll speed up the build process, getting some of this initial building out of the way. Well, that's our wheel rims done. So they're for the back wheels, I think. So that's another sub-assembly in the bag. Well, that is our seat done. That went together really quite nicely. That's another sub-assembly in the bag. Next one is, I think, a wooden slat seat. So let's take a look at that. Well, that's the bench seat done. It has a nice little grille detail on there. It's a little bit of work that we've got to do on these two edges, but otherwise, that's that sub-assembly done. Okay, my smaller sub-assemblies are all sort of done, and I'm ready to pretty much go back and do the build from the start and trundle through this. But there's one last thing I just want to get clear in my mind, and that is the interior, because it gives us an option, E or N. Basically, it gives us an option of a wooden interior or a grey interior. Now, I rather like the idea of doing the grey over a wood effect and then chipping it back. I think that will look quite nice. But I don't know how much of the interior we're going to see. So I want to just marry up some of these bigger parts and just get an understanding of whether it's worth the effort or not, given that our doors are all moulded shut and what have you pretty much. So let me take a view by cutting the large parts out and plopping it together and see what we think. Let's have a look. So we can start by removing our floor pan. The sprue gate's quite close to a little location notch there, so I'll trim that back a little bit. Okay, so if that's our floor pan for the wagon, and then we've got, what have we got? B10 is the back piece. And that slots in like that. We rest it against the box so it don't fall over for a sec. So roof, put that to one side. Then we've got side piece, so just take one of them off for now. So if that goes there, I've got bench seat going there, and I've got cab seat there. It's going to go in there like that. We've got a bulkhead at the back. So all I'm going to see is that little bit of floor, and it is going to be quite dark in there. Do a wood effect, and then, yeah, I think we will. I think we're going to do the wood effect, then we'll do some chipping of the top grey paint to make it look a little bit used. I think that'll be fun to do. It's not an overly complex build, so yeah, that's what we're going to do. Decision made. Step 1, engine block. We've already put that together, but now we've got to just clean it up and get all the seams level and what have you. So by the fact that we've already done the sub-assembly, that's going to save me a little bit of time. Then we've got quite a few little parts to go on. A couple of them need to be painted different colour. The whole thing's gloss black. It says here all chassis details except marked separately are A, which is gloss black. The F being steel, so we've got a couple of steel parts to paint in. 2 there, 1 there. So, but we won't do that until we are ready to paint those as well, because that's steel on the ends, even though it's sort of a grey colour in the middle. So yeah, I think it's the next thing is to get things built up ready for paint, but most of this is gloss black, so we can tidy it up, we can start building it and get it ready for paint, and it shouldn't be too big a process. Well, I have to say the two chassis sides have gone together really, really nicely. The most tricky part of pulling this together is actually these running boards here. These don't really fit into the hole particularly well, and I was using the liquid poly to sort of melt it into place and hold it tight. And on the one you saw build, I put these arms on first, whereas first time I did it, I put them on the plate, which is what the instructions show, and then tried to marry it up. So that was my learning on that. But yeah, otherwise, it's just some cleanup. There's quite a bit of seam on the springs there, but otherwise it all goes together really nice. I have managed to lose one part. I'm hoping it's a minor part because it's quite small, but I'll see if I can find it. And if it doesn't turn up, it's just a rod, I can replace it. But yeah, that is those done, which gets me at step 6 completed. So step and step 7 actually. So step 8, 9 and 10 focuses on the wheels. So I've got some hubs to clean up, and then we can turn the page and we're connecting these together with the center spars and what have you. So let's carry on with the wheel hubs. Right, wheels, these won't be difficult, just need to clean one or two little bits up, but most of the cleanup is on the rim, and you don't need to worry about that. We've got vinyl tyres on this kit, so as long as you can pop the wheel into the tyre, you're all good. Now I've got to say, these tyres are dreadful. You can see, look at how much cleanup there is on the inside of the rim there, and then we've got quite a thick seam running all the way around. Got to make sure that my connection point is at the bottom, so there's no way around it. It's just a case of getting in there and giving it a good sand up. There we go. We might find that this was running on bolts pretty much, because the actual detail in the tyre tread is quite shallow, so it's just a matter of going over the seam, and what basically happens is you're not sanding it off, you're stretching it till it snaps away. But you can see there, it can be cleaned up, and it won't look too bad. But yeah, you can see why some people, I mean, I don't mind vinyl tyres if they're done well. These ones are a bit naff, in fairness. But others that I've had, like on the Tamiya Dragon Wagon and the Tamiya German tank transporter, they have sort of non-solid vinyl tyres, and they are lovely. There's nothing wrong with them at all. I haven't looked to see if there is resin tyres, resin wheel replacements. That might be an option, but we can clean these up fairly well, and by the time we've done that and we've weathered them and what have you, who's going to know? Who is going to know? The worst thing to clean up, there you go, I've pretty much gone around that, and we'll just go around it and check it and make sure it's all cleaned up. But that's how you get rid of the seam. Now this thing here, it's, you know, you're going to have to go in and cut it away. Which is a real pain of a job. So you're already saying to yourself, right, that's the inside of the wheel. but you can see it's doable. It's a bit time consuming and a bit fiddly, and you can easily damage the sidewall of your tyre. Yeah. I wonder if, never tried it, let's just bear with me. Rat nose file, whether that'll work in the same way as doing the seam on the top. And the answer appears to be no. No, you're going to have to cut it away. So what a painful job that is. Oh well. I'm going to save you from having to watch me do all of these, and I'll do the rest of it off camera. Aren't you lucky? I've actually got to do it. Right, I'm just actually coming back to you on these tyres because I had a moment's inspiration. I've got my little Tamiya scissors here, and they're designed for cutting out the radio controlled bodies. They're quite hard plastic, those, whatever they're made of. So I'm actually finding it's quicker and easier to snip this away using the scissors. You can see what you're doing better, got better control, and you've got a neater finish than trying to hack at it with a knife or a file as I was previously doing. So yeah, you can see there that's better than that. It's not perfect, but it's nearly there. Yeah, so anyway, I'll get that done and get back to you in a minute. Wheels are done, tyres are temporarily fitted. We'll take them off when we paint the hubs, obviously. Just wanted to make sure everything went together. These are supposed to be fitted to the back of the wheel at this stage, but I want to paint the inside of those before we glue them on. So actually, I'm most likely going to fit them not to the wheel first, but fit them onto the axles and then glue that onto there after it's been fitted onto the axle. I think that's going to make more sense for how I'm doing this. So that is step 10 on our instructions. There we go, step 10. That's where we've just completed. So we're on step 11 now. And step 11 is building up the chassis. So if I show you there, you can see we're putting the spars down the middle, and we've got a little sub-assembly to build up there. So that is what I'm going to focus on next. Bumper is possibly the worst part I've had to clean up so far. This isn't a seam, it's a big step. Yeah, so maybe 1/4 millimetre. It's almost as thick as my knife blade top. So yeah, so quite a bit of sand. There's a lot of material, so it'll be fine. So we're gonna have to sand this all down to this level, which is quite rough anyway. You can see the texture there, so that needs sanding smooth anyway. The problem, of course, is that we may well lose these location pips for the number plate, but it is what it is. We'll be able to place it visually anyway, I think. So I'm going to start with the clean up underneath, because we've got some ejector pins that we need to just take out. Fortunately they're raised, so it's a nice quick job. Okay, and I think we need something a little coarser. So I'm going to start with a 220, and hopefully that'll take this down quite quickly, and then we can tidy it up thereafter. The important thing when you've got this much sanding to do is to try not to misshape the part. So don't try and do too much at once, and keep the shape of the part. So you can see there that we've now taken it down, removed that step. So rather than sanding for ages with a grit that's a bit too fine for the job, using a bigger grit and then sanding out the marks you've left behind from that gradually is the way to go. So we can now drop down to a 400, and usually going in the opposite direction helps take out the sanding marks a bit quicker. Okay, and then we can drop down to 600, and again going in the opposite direction. And then finally with an 800 we can polish that back in. There we go, that looks much better. Now on this centre section there's a step, and we don't want to lose the step. So I'm going to see if we can just scrape this flush and preserve the mounting pins. One of the things that we need to do is just put the definition of the step back in. And the problem with scraping is you will have some tidy up to do afterwards. To remove carefully this sprue gate nub, and then we can just smooth that out a little bit. This is a sanding stick that I've cut down previously and just about gets through those two mounting pins for the number plate. So although it'll be a little bit time consuming, we can get in there and just tidy up the scrape marks and level it up a little bit. And when we've finished all our scraping about, we can just give it a coat of, this is the extra thin Tamiya cement, and that'll just tidy it up a little bit. And when that dries, that'll be nice and smooth. And you've got to remember, we've got a number plate going on there as well. So the little nub point where we've got a little bit of scraping marks ain't going to be visible because there's something being glued right on top. So we're only going to see the edges anyway. Right, I'll finish cleaning these parts up and then we'll have a look at construction. When you can't use capillary action for your liquid poly to get into the joint, then the best technique is to give it 2 coats. The first coat that you've seen me just apply here starts to melt the plastic, makes the plastic tacky. The second coat will sit on the surface because the first one is still melting the plastic. So that sits there wet and will hold as being wet glue for a lot longer. It doesn't sort of flash off as quickly, which gives you a few moments of time to place your part and push the parts together, and then the glue will continue to cure. So that's really handy when you think it's going to be tricky to hold the place in part and you want it to sort of stick and hold immediately. It's really helpful for that, and it's also really helpful when you can't quite get in with your brush. The 2 chassis halves actually came together a lot easier than I was expecting. There wasn't lots of issues with line up or anything like that, so it was all very nicely fitting. So as long as you've done your clean up so that nothing's being forced out of place, it goes together lovely. Schoolboy error time here. I glued together the 2 plates for the towing hook, and then I happily, following the instructions, dropped the locking pin in place and glued that in too. It was only later on that I realised that I've got to attach the trailer. So when we come to attach the trailer, I'll end up having to chop a bit out of the centre and glue the trailer in place, which is a little annoying. But you know, it's not a biggie. But yeah, just something to think about when you're building yours. Unlike the rear axle, the front axle is quite delicate, as is always the case, because you've got all the steering rods and bits and pieces all on there. Quite a few quite small, delicate parts that need to be assembled. I didn't really have any major issues, but if you've not got your parts cleaned up, you will struggle with this a little bit. So it's very delicate, lots of dry fitting, and you should be fine. Using a clip as an improvised mini vise was helpful. It's definitely something where you need 3 hands, so it's really helpful to be able to just hold it in place, and you can see what you're doing a little bit, and it's easy to move around. It's not clunky. But as you can see, the parts were really quite delicate here, and it took quite a bit of time to get this all assembled. And you don't put the steering rod on until the very end, so making sure everything is straight is paramount. Otherwise, when you come to put the rod on, everything's all over the place and your wheels aren't going to look straight. So lots of time knowing what you're doing before you do it is the way to go. So I decided to add what I think are brake drums to the front axle. They don't fit on the rear axle, so I couldn't do that. But this is all getting painted in the same black, so these could go on, and there was no problem at all. So when we airbrush it, the whole lot will just get done. Whereas the back ones don't fit on the axle, they fit on the wheel. Now the instructions say all of these should fit on the wheel, but it makes no odds. I did test fit it, so you can happily put these on here, and the wheels will mount on there, no problem at all. So fitting the engine now, and it fitted exactly as it should do, no problem at all, looked great, went in lovely. I did later have a problem when trying to put the drive shaft in. It just didn't align, and you can see how the engine slopes slightly backwards, and that kicks out that fan at the front, which then wouldn't fit into the radiator, force the radiator forward, and ultimately when we were fitting the grille, the radiator had to come out, otherwise the grille wouldn't place properly. And in fact, the fan was too big to go in the recess there, and I had to chop the blade short to get that to fit in at all anyway. But the radiator was still being kicked out too much, which I didn't realise until final construction. Right then, I have been having a little problem with the drive shaft. Goes there, goes into there. So I've now fitted it, but I've had to open a hole for it to pass through that spar, and it was too long, so I've had to trim it down. So just be careful if you're doing this yourself, but there's no other way it was going to go through, but it's not clear on the instructions exactly how to do it.
Oh my God, no, Tim. You would not. Oh no, you just no. That is such a bad idea.
What's he suggesting?
Sarah Monkey, you should be on Gogglebox. That would be brilliant.
Gogglebox.
Saturday night, looking for a bit of background noise while I'm building, and to be honest, there's nothing better than getting onto Plastic Monkey's Scale Models channel, where he runs a live stream on a Saturday night, along with Chris of Rally Car Miniatures, Sue from Ice Queen 7, and Nigel from Nigel's Modelling Bench. Watch them having a build, having a laugh, and lots of other fellow modellers in the live chat. So it's a good place to be on a Saturday night if you're doing some modelling and just want some background noise. some ribs that go underneath the floor pan that have to be added before you can attach this to the chassis. Now obviously I was going to paint the chassis before we attach the floor pan, but the underneath of the floor pan will need painting at the same time as the chassis is done. It's all the same colour, and it'll just be easier to get in and paint it if you leave it as two separate parts. Again, the fit here was really good as long as things are cleaned up. Quite a bit of clean up on the ribs because again the moulding had slightly misaligned, and so there was a bit of a lip that needed sorted. But the overall effect when all of this is done, the chassis is built up, the engine's put in, is something that's very realistic, very busy, and really does look the part.